Welcome back to another round of Basis Picks. Now, Leigh Wood versus Mauricio Lara. Very intriguing fight. The undercard, there are some decent fights on there, but realistically, it's not the greatest, and it is very A-side heavy. So, look, Gary Cully versus Wilfredo Flores. I do expect Gary Cully to come through this fight quite comfortably. He's looking for a knockout, but I think I've got a feeling he's gonna pretty much dominate the fight, but Wilfredo is gonna circle. He's gonna sort of try and maybe nick rounds or nick his opportunities throughout. So conservatively, I'm actually gonna predict that Gary Cully gets that one on points. It's a 10 rounder, so I think Wilfredo will be able to survive the 10 rounds basically, and lose a fairly one-sided affair, like a 97, 93, 98, 92 type scorecard. Now you got Chevron Clark versus Israel Dufus. Now I don't know a huge amount of Israel, but what I do know from previous fights that I've seen snippets of, he's actually campaigns at light heavyweight. He's a last-minute opponent, taking the place of Dex Bellman, who was supposed to be fighting Chevron Clark. I actually think that would have been a much better fight. Obviously, Dex Bellman has fully integrated himself into the cruiserweight division at this time. He would have offered some resistance, and I feel like it just would have been a bit more of an action-packed fight. Israel Dufus, I think his record is something like 20 wins and 8 losses or something along those lines. So, I mean, of his 20 wins, though, there are about 16 or 17 by KO, which tells you that he has got some power. Again, that power is at a slightly lower weight, but maybe on this one, not necessarily having to cut that weight may work in his favor. And we have seen Chevron heavily buzzed previously in other fights, so he's got to very much be cognizant of that power if that is the case, and just make sure that he stays defensively astute, defensively responsible, while obviously looking to land his work. But realistically, I do think he's going to take this fight. I do think a KO will be the result of this, and I'm not sure if it's an 8 rounder or a 10 rounder, but I'm gonna predict a KO in about I'm gonna go round 7. So yeah, in terms of what's his name, Dalton Smith versus Billy Allington. Yeah, Allington, English champ at super lightweight, but he is not at the level of Dalton Smith. Now, Dalton Smith also maybe isn't at the level people perceive him to be, but when it comes to sort of this challenge, he is definitely well above British. I think this match is more just almost a prelude to the impending Sam Maxwell fight, which will be his last defense of the British title, where he will be able to win it outright should he win that fight. And I think this is more sort of a prelude for that, almost a keep busy until that fight's supposed to happen in May. So I'm gonna go with Dalton Smith. I think he may just box this one. I can't see him really going for the stoppage. So yeah, conservatively again, I feel that this could be a points style victory for him. But now let's get to the main event. So you got Leigh Wood versus Mauricio Lara, and I've been kind of going back and forth on this one for a little bit of time now. It's a bit of a hard one to call in certain aspects. Stylistically, Leigh Wood should have the advantage, as he performs very much as a boxer puncher in style and in application. However, he does have a very pure boxer style trainer in Ben Davison, so you have to determine, do those two styles themselves mesh and gel well? Mauricio Lara, on the other hand, is very much a front foot pressure fighter who will, he will employ the jab at times, which he's actually got a very underrated jab, but he will swing shots in from very weird angles. They can be looping shots. Sometimes they can come sort of a slight loop straight down the pipe. He'll work sort of digging body shots as well, and his punch placement and his pad work, from what I saw of his public workout, actually looks a lot better than the very last time that we saw him we experienced him doing one of those. So when I'm looking at the fight, the first thing I'm kind of thinking is, okay, Leigh Wood's sort of best method to victory will be to try and hold center ring as much as he can. Every time Mauricio Lara sort of leaps in, sort of take a half step back and hit him with a ramrod jab, and then follow it up with a solid backhand, and then spin off, rinse and repeat. Something like this would prevent Mauricio Lara from jumping into shots, because unlike someone like Josh Warrington, Leigh Wood is not feather fisted, is not sort of a weaker puncher to the point where you might want to take those chances. Like, we can definitely attest to the fact that while Leigh Wood isn't like the biggest puncher out there, he is a puncher of significant note, to the point that you don't want to just be taking those risks, unnecessarily. In previous fights, and even in the fight that Mauricio Lara did lose, one of them, the one that he lost by KO way back, I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago. Wait, was it that far back? Somewhere around it, maybe 5 to 6. Let's say that. Even the fight that he lost there, it did come to the hands of a person that was significantly taller than him, that was able to use range and offset his aggression with his inability to find safe exits into the pocket. So I'm pretty sure that Leigh Wood's team have been figuring that one out, trying to work and decide how they're gonna sort of implement that into their game plan, but I would not be surprised if that is what they employ. Now, Mauricio Lara, on the other hand, he's got to remain busy and steadfast, and if anything, he's got to try and leap in at awkward angles, and not go for the body. Not go for the head. He needs to actually aim for Leigh Wood's body. Leigh Wood's flirted with the idea of moving up to 130 pounds. He is incredibly tight at the 126 weight, plus he's 9 or 10 years older than Mauricio Lara, so it's not like he's making featherweight comfortable. He's getting older, it's getting a lot harder to make. So Lara has got to basically feint upstairs, but just work Leigh Wood's body, and ultimately just keep working that body, and see if you can drain the older man's gas tank out that way, especially if his energy isn't right the way it should be. That being said, Leigh Wood's got great cardio, and very good conditioning, so it may take a long time to employ that tactic and have it bear fruit, but you've got to slow him down, and you've got to be able to stop him from being mobile and being able to offset your movement into the kill box and into his space. Ultimately, I kind of see this fight being a fight of two halves. The first half will be all action Lara, with Leigh Wood at times possibly even coming through bits of a crisis, but taking a little bit of time to warm into the fight between sort of rounds 1, 2, 3 and 4. Rounds 5 and 6 I feel will be where Leigh Wood ends up having sort of his best success of the first half, and I feel like those will also be the rounds that Mauricio Lara maybe needs a break after not being able to get Leigh Wood out of there in a fairly swift fashion. I do see after that round sort of 7, 8, 9 will be sort of where Leigh Wood comes back and almost takes over the fight. Probably on this point, maybe being ahead on the scorecards. Again, staying disciplined, but working diligently behind the jab, and on occasions when he can, getting in on the inside and trying to use his size to rough up Mauricio Lara, trap his arms, push him back to the ropes, maybe employ a bit of dirty tactics, and just sort of try and keep him at bay until the ref breaks them. And then I do believe that rounds 10, 11 and 12 will kind of be back to Mauricio Lara with his second wind, going for broke, feeling that this fight is getting away from him. But I do think with the roar of the crowd in Nottingham, I don't think that Leigh Wood's going to be denied on this one. And I do believe that, look, he picked Mauricio Lara for a reason, twice. You know, he pulled out of the first fight, but he's taken him again in the rematch. I've got to imagine that is for something. It could be a very big miscalculation, but I do actually see Leigh Wood getting this. Just stylistically, it seems like he's the right guy. And again, I actually think it's going to be on points. I don't think the knockout's going to occur in this one. I think both guys are almost going to negate each other at times and prevent, you know, sort of that real danger level, you know, of the, you know, sort of really getting hurt in the fight. Now look, I could be totally wrong, and I'm going to be there and I'm just going to enjoy as a fan, but my prediction is Leigh Wood to win on points, in a very hard fought bout, and then we'll see where Mauricio Lara goes from there. But yeah, leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. I apologize if this one isn't as energetic as some of the others. It's been a very, very long day. But with that being said, thank you. Space is picked. Locked.